and to continue our analysis of the general elections in Nicaragua this Sunday and their importance not just domestically but also at the regional level, we now welcome Michael Campbell, who is Minister-Counsellor to the President of the Republic for International Affairs and the Greater Caribbean. Michael, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here.
Michael, how important are these elections today for Nicaragua?
Every single electoral process that happens in Nicaragua is fundamental. This election is no different. Nicaragua has celebrated 8 presidential elections since 1984. And in each one of these electoral processes, citizens' participation has been over 70%. Nicaraguans celebrate elections in order to consolidate peace, in order to continue promoting democracy, in order to guarantee the participation of all sectors of society. We are not celebrating an electoral process just to benefit a few segments of the Nicaragua population. We are celebrating an electoral process in which all sectors of society can participate. All sectors of society can feel represented. That's why we had this massive participation in today's election. And I think that is what the enemies of Nicaragua don't understand. The people of Nicaragua feel a part. They assimilate the electoral process as something that is their own. And that's why they turn out in mass to vote. Nicaragua right now is electing president and vice president, 20 national congressmen and women, 70 departmental and regional congressmen and women, and 20 congressmen and women to the Central American Parliament. We are ensuring that 50% of all these elected positions are for women. Nicaragua, as you know, is the country in the region that has the best performance in terms of gender parity. So of course, among the population, the electorate that is turning out in mass to vote, you can see women. Women feel represented in their democracy, in the democracy that they're building. In Nicaragua, probably more than in any other country in the American hemisphere. Likewise, we are electing regional congressmen and women. These are the congressmen and women that represent the autonomous regions of the Caribbean coast of Nicaragua. Because the indigenous and Afro-descendant people of the Caribbean coast of Nicaragua feel represented, they turn out in mass to vote, because they feel that they're building a democracy that is their own. So I think, of course, this democracy is very important because we have, yet again, we are defending our national sovereignty, our right to self-determination. We are defending our independence. We are performing with dignity, but every single election in Nicaragua is important. Every election, we dedicate our best efforts. And this election is no different than others in that regard.
Michael, the Sandinista government led by President Daniel Ortega and Rosario Murillo has seen repeated attacks by Western powers, in particular the United States. Today we've seen a statement from the White House calling this election a pantomime. Can you go over some of these attacks and their effects on the Nicaraguan population?
Well, as you probably know, interventionism in the affairs of Nicaragua has been probably the most persistent element of U.S. foreign policy. Ever since our independence, the United States has always carried out this interventionism in collusion with the local oligarchy. Our national hero, Augusto Cesar Sandino, and later the Sandinista Popular Revolution, was the first time that the Nicaraguan people broke away, rebelled against this interventionism and against oligarchic rule. And ever since that, the United States has worked to try to undermine the victories of the Nicaraguan people. That happened after 1979 with the revolution and throughout the 1980s with the Contra-Revolutionary War. And now after 2006 with the victory of the Frente Sandinista in the polls, the attacks continued in 2007. We saw the highlight of that attack, the latest highlight of that attack in 2018 with the now failed coup against the government of Daniel Ortega and Comrade Rosario Murillo, this bloody coup that cost the lives of many Nicaraguans and is estimated to have cost over $23 billion to our economy. But so we know that these attacks are characteristics to United States foreign policy, and we know they will continue. Instead of trying to build a relationship based on cooperation, a relationship based on respect, on the principles of international law, the U.S. government and other governments seek to break with international law and try to intervene in the sovereign affairs of Nicaragua. But the response of the people of Nicaragua is something that is astounding. The way that you defeat interventionism, the way that you defeat lies and manipulations is by turning out in mass to vote. So when we see that some governments say that they are applying illegal coercive measures against Nicaragua that they call sanctions, and you see the people of Nicaragua, on the other hand, coming out in mass to vote, you have to ask yourself, who do they consider the Nicaraguan people? They say that these sanctions some way or other are helping the Nicaraguan people, but who are the Nicaraguan people? Because right now, millions of Nicaraguans have turned out to vote in the 14,000 voting stations that are all over the country. The political parties are participating in the elections. We have poll watchers, we have electoral companions, in a process that's been going on peacefully, with dignity. The Nicaraguan people are turning out in mass to vote for their authorities, and it doesn't matter what any government wants to say. The truth is that these authorities that are going to be elected are elected by the Nicaraguan people and only by the Nicaraguan people. They are the ones who decide what they want for their future. They are the ones who decide the type of democracy that they want. And I think the Nicaraguan people are showing the world, and especially showing our enemies, that we are not afraid, that we will not let ourselves be affected by what they do. Every day we get up and we work and we try to build a better Nicaragua for ourselves, a better Nicaragua for our children.
Michael, in terms of the mainstream media narrative, there's an idea that in Nicaragua there aren't free and fair elections, and that President Daniel Ortega has got rid of all the opposition by imprisoning them. What can you tell us about these figures who are claiming to be opposition to the government, and these cases surrounding them, and why they are being used in this way to try and present themselves as an opposition that is being silenced in Nicaragua?
I think the only thing that these individuals have in common is that they all received funding from the United States government or from other sources. And the fact that they're in jail is not because they are members of some political party or because they are candidates of a political party. They are in jail because they can't account for the monies that they have received. The international, the false narrative goes around electoral participation and their rights to electoral participation. But the truth is that they're being investigated for money laundering, for not being able to account for funds they received through their NGOs, and even funds they received in their own personal accounts. Some of them are also being accused for calling for sanctions and being investigated for crimes against the state of Nicaragua. All of this information is readily available. We have through the Office of the Attorney General, I think over 30 different statements have been published, updating the population and updating the world about how these investigations are taking place. The crimes that have been brought up, the charges that have been brought up against these individuals would have been tried long before in any other country. In fact, I'm sure that in the United States and in Europe and other countries of the world, people are being accused and being tried for these same things. Why can't the state of Nicaragua defend itself from regular crimes. The crime of money laundering is not something that is that just happens in Nicaragua. It happens all over, and it's investigated. And if people are found to be guilty of these crimes, then they have to face the penalties imposed by the Constitution and the laws of their countries and our countries. The narrative is trying to project these figures as something that they really are not. The real political parties of Nicaragua right now are participating in the elections. They did their political campaign. They have their poll watchers in place. And right now are awaiting the results of the voting process, which they have committed themselves to respect. So I think it's very difficult to go against some of the larger media platforms and try to correct the narrative. But one thing that we are very happy about right now is that we have over 200 electoral companions here on the ground. We have been able to cover so far 10 departments of the country, over 720 voting stations, and they have been able to see, these are international companions, and they have been able to see firsthand what is happening on the ground. While the elections were taking place, while the voting was taking place, we noticed that some media platforms were making statements. And these same electoral companions were counteracting the false narrative that were being made. So I think it's very important to really be on the ground, to really come and see what's happening in Nicaragua, the transformations that have been happening in Nicaragua, not only regarding our electoral process, but our social development in general, to firsthand have the opportunity to notice the pride and the dignity with which the Nicaraguan people carry themselves, knowing that we are the country in this hemisphere that ensures gender parity, the best performer in terms of gender parity, the best performer in terms of indigenous and Afro-descendant rights, the safest country in Central America, the country with the best roads in Central America, the country that has performed the best in terms of handling the COVID-19 pandemic. These are things that give pride to anyone. And today we are also going to show something that makes us very proud. You're going to see a citizens' participation that is above 70%. That's the tendency of the Nicaraguan people participation in the presidential election. So this is something that gives us great pride every time elections come around.
Michael, following this false narrative by the Western media, what can we expect from the United States and its European allies? What reaction can we expect to the results of this Sunday's elections?
Well, I hope that when they see such a well-organized electoral process and such a fantastic turnout, that they will change their terrible policies being implemented against the people of Nicaragua, violating the rights of the people of Nicaragua to fight against poverty, to come out of poverty, and to achieve development. Of course, this is a wish. If you follow history, and like I mentioned before, interventionism in our sovereign affairs has been the most persistent element of the United States foreign policy in this hemisphere. We believe that, and we are preparing ourselves for even more attacks and more aggressions. We hope that some of these countries will learn the truth. That's what's going on in Nicaragua. Stick to the truth of what's going on in our country and begin to change their attitudes, because the Nicaraguan people have spoken today. The real Nicaraguan people have spoken today, and they are committed to continue strengthening their democracy, moving forward, achieving well-being, achieving development, and facing the challenges that the world really has, the serious challenges that the world has today, like the climate crisis, like the pandemic, and other crises that are out there. So we hope that some of these countries will come around after they see the results of this election, but we prepare for the worst. All we can do as a Nicaraguan society and as a Nicaraguan government is to stand strong and continue with the commitment of bettering the lives of our people, moving forward to guarantee a better life for the Nicaraguan people, that the Nicaraguan people have faced enough. And now it's time for Nicaragua to move forward, and to move forward in dignity, to achieve development with dignity and without the interventionism of no other government.
Michael, beyond the domestic field, what have been the key priorities of the Sandinista government in terms of its relations with neighboring countries and the wider region?
Well, Nicaragua's foreign policy has always been, our number one foreign policy is to not interfere in the internal affairs of any country, and to be a good neighbor to all countries. And we have been consistent with that. Even after facing unprecedented attacks, Nicaragua has always stuck to that fundamental principle of not interfering in the sovereign affairs of any other country. Nicaragua works very well with the countries of the Central American Isthmus as part of the Central American integration system. We are active members of the Association of Caribbean States. We're working hard to also strengthen the community of Latin American and Caribbean states. We hope that sometime, and we also have our doubts about that, we hope that the Organization of American States can become an organization that works for the development, for the well-being of the people, and stops being and operating like a ministry of the colonies of the United States, another instrument of the United States. So Nicaragua is open for business. We want to have good relationships with our neighbors. We want to share experiences. We want to promote trade and tourism. We want to promote investment. And we are doing that. We are moving ahead as best we can, even in the face of aggressions. But we are moving ahead steadily. This year is turning out to be a very positive year for the Nicaraguan economy. Investments have come back to a very positive level, and we believe that our economy is going to grow at 8%, and that's happening because we have good relationships with our neighbors. We hope to continue working towards that, and we hope that our neighbors can be good with us as well.
Michael Campbell, who's Minister-Counsellor to the President of the Republic of Nicaragua for International Affairs and the Greater Caribbean, thank you so much for joining us today and for offering your valuable insight into